Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, West Alabama, that world, right here on the Joe Gaither Show. You're watching us right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, on and so on. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. We're back for a little more on our Thursday edition. We've already talked to our friend. We've already talked to one of our friends to talk about UTC, but we are moving on to Cowbell Corner. We're going to talk a little Mississippi State Bulldogs. We're going to talk about what the heck is going on over in Starkville as they fired Zach Arnett. And to do that, we're going to welcome on Kensi Brandenberg. Kensi Brandenberg joins us from Cowbell Corner. You can follow her right there at Kensington Brand Touche. You heard her last week on the Joe Gaither Show, and we're proud to be back on Cowbell Corner to find out what in the world is going on in Starkville. What the heck? You fired Zach Arnett 4-6. Kensi, how is your week going? Have you got any sleep keeping up with all the news over there in Stark Vegas?
Well, it has been a wild week after the news about Zach Arnett being fired. So there's been a lot of rumors, a lot of news. And after hearing about what Zach Selman, the athletic director, had to say about it, he has brought in an interim coach, Greg Knox, to take over the last 2 games of the season. But we are still waiting for updates on who may be our next head coach.
What do you think about Greg Knox? What has the athletic director said about Greg Knox? He was an analyst, and he's been promoted to head coach. You've got Southern Miss, and you've got Ole Miss left on the schedule. 2 games, both of pretty significant importance to the general Mississippi State fan. If you can go 1-1, you're okay, I guess. But if you go 2-0, you're really happy. 0-2, and you're feeling really, really, really awful. What's the outlook on the last 2 games, and what do you know about Greg Knox?
Well, for the last 2 games, we need both of those to secure bowl eligibility. So there comes a little bit of high tension when you can lose both and take a okay season with 4 wins, but in going 1-1, then the next 2 weeks, that would be good. But what we're really aiming for is 2-0, not just for the victories, but also so that we can have that bowl eligibility. And if Greg Knox knows what the team needs to do for the next 2 weeks, and I believe he's got what it takes to get the Bulldogs there.
Well, it's going to be a huge task. I mean, you're going to probably beat Southern Miss. I mean, that you beat them on talent alone. You got them at home. You get a little rejuvenation in the locker room with the new coach. But the big deal is the Egg Bowl. I mean, it's a huge deal in the state of Mississippi. People kind of overlook it because it's not the Iron Bowl. It's not the Iron Bowl. It's not, I guess, Georgia, Florida. It's not some of the other rivalries in the SEC. But if you are a proponent, if you watch the Egg Bowl each and every year, it's one of the nastier rivalries in the SEC. It's a big deal. And Ole Miss is having a really great season. I mean, obviously going to Athens this past weekend and losing, not good for the for the Rebels' point of view, but having a really good season. Your only losses are at Alabama and at Georgia. What's the thoughts on can Mississippi State beat Ole Miss in that Egg Bowl with an interim coach?
Well, I think it will be a real challenge. I don't know if we are fully there yet, but I know that the Bulldogs will give it all they have. Thankfully, we will probably be getting Will Rogers back, so hopefully we'll have our QB1 leading the team once again. And I don't know if that will have what it takes to be Ole Miss, but they will be putting all they have into this game to try and take the state title.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge 2 weeks left in Bulldog country, but really the next couple of months are even bigger as you look at who's going to be the next head coach. Kensi, what are you hearing over there in Starkville? Who's going to be the next head coach? You're hearing a lot of weird names: Dan Mullen, Joey Chadwell. What's your feeling, and what are you looking for in the next head coach?
Well, I think what we're really looking for is someone who can really take forward with the offense. I know our defense was pretty good this year. We did struggle a lot with our offense. So hopefully that whoever we bring in will have more experience with the offense. I know Zach Arnett had previously been a defensive coordinator, so he did really well with getting that defensive side up and strong. But I think that next season we're going to be looking for someone more with offensive background who can really get our quarterbacks more stronger, especially since we most likely won't have Rodgers next year, and also who can just lead the whole team all together. But as for who it will be, I know that there are a lot of rumors going around, and personally, I'm not sure who it will be. We're still looking, and hopefully, whoever it is will have what it takes to get the Bulldogs back on their feet, back to winning games. I know there was a lot of talk about Dan Mullen, so we'll see where that goes if he wants to come to Starkville.
Well, were you around at all during Dan Mullen's last time over in Starkville?
I was not, unfortunately. I've only been in Starkville for this is my second year in Starkville, so it's all pretty new.
Where are you from, Kenzie?
I'm from Nashville, Tennessee,
Oh,
but
nice.
originally Ohio, so I keep from the north and keep going south. So I'm still learning all the SEC sort of things, but it's really awesome.
Yeah, so Dan Mullen was there for a handful of 5 years, 2012 to 2017. Is that right? 17 or 18. He had Mississippi State up to number one in the college football playoff rankings with Dak Prescott for about 2 weeks.
Well, having him been Dak Prescott's head coach, I'd say that we have, if he were to come back, I'd say that'd be a perfect thing for our team, especially with where Dak is now leading the Cowboys and they're having an excellent season. So, in him having this is his eighth straight season starting for the Cowboys. So, if we can have a coach like Mullen back, I think that we'd be golden.
Well, I'm really excited to see what Mississippi State does. Like, what's the output or what's the expectation for Mississippi State? I mean, you're not going to be competing with the Alabamas of the world, but I mean, you fired. I was never impressed with Zach Arnett. I was never impressed with Zach Arnett because I didn't really love his leadership style. I don't know how much time you got to spend around him, but I feel like okay, you gave the guy just less than 1 year. The next guy, are you going to be committed to him? Jamie Chadwell is seen as kind of the front runner. You got Jeff Levy over at Oklahoma as well. Tom Herman kind of out there. I really like Lance Leopold as one of your big names, the head coach at Kansas. But really, if you're thinking about it, I mean, you've been in Starkville a couple of years now. What do you think a realistic expectation is from the next head coach of the Mississippi State Bulldogs?
I really think it's going to have to be someone who can take offense and kind of turn around what we have right now. I know I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but the head coach of Liberty, who has led the team 10-0,
Chadwell.
and
Yeah.
there were some rumors about him being in Starkville and talking to the staff. So if he comes in, if he can do the same thing he did with Liberty, then that would be absolutely what our team needs.
All right. Well, I'm asking you more from what do you think? What's the thing as a real? Because because Mississippi State's gonna finish probably last in the SEC West this year. Maybe second to last, beating out Arkansas. What that big old 7-3 victory. But no, you're going to finish probably second to last or last in the SEC West. What's a realistic expectation for? Let's say you get Jamie Chadwell. We're just hypothetically, you get Jamie Chadwell. What's the okay? We're satisfied being third in the West. I mean, you're not going to have divisions anymore, so you're basically playing an all 16 team, 1 through 16. Okay, we're satisfied being what 14th or better, 15th, you know, 13th or better because you've got Vanderbilt. You're always going to have thank God for Vanderbilt, I guess. But like, what's the right expectation for Mississippi State to have with their next head coach?
If we can get a number, if we can get a ranking that's maybe above 12 at least. I mean, I don't expect us to be number 1 next season or even in the top 5, but as long as we can shoot up from where we are, I mean, that's not a super far place to shoot up from. So, as long as we can get someone who can at least get us in the top I mean, the top 10 would be probably the most I mean, that's a big dream, but a new head coach could potentially get us there. However, I'd say in the top 12 is probably where we would want to shoot for. We may have Arkansas again next year, especially since after they played us, I mean, they fired their offensive coordinator right after. So we'll always have Arkansas as well as Vanderbilt. And along with that, we could have some other surprises depending on how other seasons go with the other teams in the SEC. So whoever it is needs to get us at least above where we are now, and that's not a hard place to get away from.
Right. The only place you can go is up. We're talking to Kensi Brandenberg of Cowbell Corner. We're happy to be on Cowbell Corner with our partnership with BamaCentral.com. You can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We've been talking about Mississippi State and the football program, obviously firing Zach Arnett. Tell me about the feel on campus of firing Zach Arnett. Is it indifferent? Everybody doesn't care about football. I mean, or is it, oh, this has been a great move. We were really supportive of firing this guy, or everybody acted too soon? What's been your general feel of what, the reporters that you've talked to, the students that you've talked to, you're right there on the ground in Starkville. Is everybody supportive or indifferent, or are they, questioning this move?
Well, as this season's gone on, it started out with a lot of energy trying to see what Zach Arnett could do, but then as it continued and it was loss after loss, I mean, our students ended up shouting from the student section, "We want Mike, we want Mike," wanting Mike Wright to go in. And
Sure.
of course, Arnett in a post after that happened in the post game press conference, Arnett said, "I don't listen to the student section," and Will Rogers said the exact same thing. They said, "I don't listen to what they say." So, I mean, they're not going to listen to the students, and that means the students stopped coming. I mean, you would look at the section right after you look at the whole stadium right after the second half, and no one's there. Everyone's gone. So, since the energy was down, there was just no hype around football anymore. However, as soon as it was released that Zach Arnett had been fired, you had this huge eruption of excitement from fans and especially from students. And everyone was so supportive of this. They were happy to see him go. And now it's just the waiting and the silencing who's going to be next and who's going to have the team better next season.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see who Mississippi State hires, and you'll be able to follow it on CowbellCorner.com with Kensi Brandenberg. All right, let's flip it to basketball. Basketball is in its infancy of its season. The Bulldogs are 3-0. They've started off pretty well with wins over Arizona State, UT Martin, and North Alabama. So you got some pretty decent wins right there. Your next up is going to be against Washington State in a Hall of Fame Classic over there in Euconsville, Connecticut. So it looks like that's going to be kind of an ESPN game. And then they'll be playing either Northwestern or Rhode Island in a little charity classic for around Thanksgiving. So that comes up actually in 2 to 3 days. What's been the general feel of the basketball team? Obviously, Tulu Smith is still hurt, right? What's the feel of the basketball program, the early season, kind of how are we feeling about the Bulldogs on the hard court?
Well, right now, since we've come out really strong, there's a lot of excitement, especially not just with men's, but also with women's basketball. It seems like it's because of how football has performed. Now everyone's switching and putting all their hope into basketball. So since there's been so much hype, it's been really fun to see the Bulldogs win and come out really strong. And they've done renovations to Humphrey Coliseum, which look amazing. And so I really have a good feeling about this season. I think that the Bulldogs are going to come out strong. If we get Tulu Smith back for when we start our conference games, then we would be absolutely ready to go, ready to even do better than we did last year. And last season, we did a lot better than expected. So hopefully this season it will keep going because our incredible coach Chris Jans. I mean, he's had his extension for this year for a lot. So I think that what he's got planned for the Bulldogs is to continue playing the way we've been playing and winning more games and just seeing an excellent season.
Well, Kensi, tell everybody about what you're doing at Cowbell Corner, what you're going to be working on over the next couple of weeks. You got Thanksgiving break coming up, hopefully, but there's no break for the media world. What have you got going on for the rest of the next couple of weeks with the last little bit of football season?
Right. Well, we're keeping up with basketball. We're even shouting out some of our smaller sports, soccer and volleyball, who have been doing incredible. I mean, soccer has made it past the first round of the NCAA tournament. So
Who are y'all
we're
playing? Who's
keeping
Mississippi
up.
State playing?
I cannot remember that off the top of my head, but they have been doing incredible in all the smaller sports. I mean, yesterday volleyball beat Auburn, and so they've gotten 4 or 5 conference wins right now. They also beat Ole Miss, and so the smaller sports are also having great seasons. Where we're covering that. We're expecting to see a lot from football, just talking about what could be, and also covering what's happening. So there will be a lot of that, and just continuing to keep up with all things that state has going on in the athletic world.
Well, you can follow her at Kensington Brand 2 and read her on Cowbell Corner. Where else can they follow you or get to know you, Kensi?
Well, Twitter for sure, and definitely maybe LinkedIn. I
Oh, that's cool. Whatever. Yeah.
all over the place. I'm on every social, but definitely Twitter for sure.
All right, so we will keep up with Cowbell Corner, keep up with Mississippi State, who they're going to hire, and we'll be following up with Kensi or one of her cohorts next week right here on Cowbell Corner and on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. Good to see you, Kensi. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. That's Kensi Brandenberg. Goodness gracious. Kensi Brandenberg joining us for her weekly appearance. We're talking about Mississippi State. We're talking about Missouri. We're going to be catching up with Missouri here in just a little bit on the Thursday edition of the Joe Gaither Show. We already heard from Gene Henley talking about UTC earlier in the episode. So keep it locked in. If you are watching us live, we'll be signing back in about 3 o'clock. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon, we'll be coming right back with a little Missouri talk right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, BamaCentral.com, CowbellCorner.com, MissouriCentral.com. It's a lot of fun right here on the Joe Gaither Show.